Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, man. I have none other than the amazing Gary Klein. And I have to admit to you, like, you're a super good friend of mine, but I was sitting here waiting on you to get in here and I looked up a few things. I did not realize that you have fished a bass event for 5 decades. The only person that's ever done that. And I did not realize that you won your second BASS event you ever fished. That's really cool. So we're going to dive off into the legend, the living legend of Gary Klein right here. Just a phenomenal guy. So you guys stay tuned. It's going to be a really, really neat interview. All right, so we got Gary here, and just a little bit about you, man. I think you got a phenomenal wife, daughters. Like, I got to go spend a little time with you, and I got to learn a lot about you. Like, I was in awe of that because I was such a young angler at the time, and you just let me come to your house. And we had a lot of fun. We shot a lot of things.
Yes, we did.
That's one thing about Gary. Like, he can shoot stuff at thousands of yards. Like, that's really, really cool. But
we're learning.
There's so many different things that I could talk to you about that I don't know what direction to take this interview. I guess.
Let me just say this about the interview, okay? It's your enthusiasm and your passion that has gotten you to where you are today. That's the same enthusiasm and passion that I have for fishing. And you are just like me. We don't have to be bass fishing. We don't have to be competing in an event. If the crappie are biting, we still want to go fishing. And we're on the road for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, park our boats, and in about 3 days I get antsy because I want to go fishing again. I mean, it's just in our blood. It's the way that we were raised.
Tell me about the early days, like before I really, like, I want to know, like, D. Thomas, I mean, you were one of the very first people to ever flip, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And, one thing that I will say about me, my career, I've been very fortunate. I got introduced in competitive angling in 1973 when I was a sophomore in high school, living in Northern California. And I was either young and dumb at the time or whatever, but once I experienced a weigh-in at my local marina, where I was a gas jockey making $1.65 an hour, I was hooked. I mean, that's all I wanted to do as a kid, is fish. And I wanted to do it and make a living. I lived it, I breathed it, and I followed that path. But in that upbringing, the first professional angler, well, we didn't call them, they were just guys that were really good at it, was D. Thomas. And it was at the conclusion of that event, the first one that I ever watched, D. Thomas won the event. And I walked up to him after everything was over with.
How old are you?
I was 15.
That's what I thought. Okay,
I was 15 and D was 34, okay? D had just won $500 on a 2-day event. And I walked up and I introduced myself, and I'll never forget it, standing in Bidwell Canyon Marina. I walked up and I said, "My name's Gary Klein." Or as I said, "D, my name's Gary Klein, and one of these days I'm going to be better than you."
You said that too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love it.
You know how it is when you're 15, you're kind of cocky, little long hair, you know, your little bead choker chain. And I wore white beads and bell-bottom pants. But D literally, I'll never forget it, wrapped his arm around me and sucked me up against his chest and looked me in the eyes and he said, "Bring it on, son." And we really developed a relationship. I was kind of like the son that D didn't have. D had 3 daughters. So I developed that relationship. And literally, the first time D took me fishing on the California Delta, we were in his 14-foot aluminum boat, 20-horse Mercury engine, no trolling motor. D sat on the bow of his boat on a board with a paddle. Now, he had a 12-foot rod in his right hand. And that's how I learned how to flip, is with a 12-foot dip and... No, we never pulled it out of the water.
So like people crappie fish today?
No, we were using saltwater blanks with heavy line.
Heavy?
Oh, yeah.
So your arms were like Popeye.
Oh, yeah, big time, yeah. But anyhow, literally, it was really a cool technique because D would put the jig in the water and then just paddle. And he'd take that pole and put it, go down the logs, down the stump. It was amazing. And when you got the strike, you go like that and suck a 5-pounder up on the surface. So you got a 12-foot rod, you'd hit it like this and get the hook set, and then you'd reach up and make the rod shorter and just bounce him in the boat.
Wow.
So I was in the back of the boat, so I was always taking the jig out of the mouth of Dee's fish. And he laughed, "Hey, son, man, here's another one, 5-pounder, 4-pounder.
Literally being front-ended.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But I mean,
But you're learning. I mean.
Oh yeah, but I spent days and days and days with Dee like that. And then also my upbringing, I met Mike Folkestad. And Mike Folkestad, for those of you that don't know, he was our West Coast electronic guru. All's Mikey, I called him Mikey, I still call him Mikey, he always fished offshore. He never threw to the bank. He was always reading structure. Back then we were using flashers. So I fished with Mikey all the time, and Dee Thomas. So Dee Thomas was teaching me how to fish shallow and be aggressive.
Right.
And Mike was teaching me how to read our Lowrance electronics
You get
offshore.
the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and it was really, really a cool combination of that. And then of course Rich Forehand taught me how to fish with a spinning rod and light line and all that bit. So as an angler coming up, I was very fortunate to be introduced to these individuals and spend a lot of time with them. And that's why I mentioned to you about your passion for fishing. And I'm always attracted to young anglers that just live it, breathe it, talk about it, because they're going through the same process that you and I go through. Because in the beginning of a career, there's so much to learn. Because not only do you have to learn rods, reels, lines, lures, knots, but then you have to learn about yourself. And you know as well as I do, at the top of this sport, it's all about inside.
Right.
Decisions that you make and how you prepare for an event and how you accept defeat and what you do. That's why I like this sport. It's an individual sport. Can't blame it on anybody. It's always yourself. So when you're successful, you can pat yourself on the back.
Yep. So just real quick thought. So did the rule in our tournaments from having, I think, we're only allowed an 8-foot rod. Did it come from you and Dee, I guess?
Came from Dee Thomas. And if you really want to know the story, I'll try to make this quick. What happened is Dee Thomas was actually coached into fishing tournaments by the guy that he was always with. It was his team partner.
Yeah.
And they said, man, there's money to win in these tournaments, so let's fish them. Back then, it was a $25 entry fee, $500 for first place. So Dee started fishing the team events. He won the first one, won the second one, won the third one, won the fourth one. So I think it was the 5th event. The night before the tournament, he got a knock on his hotel door, and it was 5 guys, and it was the newly formed tournament committee. And they were there to inform Dee Thomas that it's unfair for you to use a 12-foot rod. Okay, back then everybody sat in a seat and overhand cast with short little pistol grip rods. So Dee, being the competitor that he is, said, okay, how long a rod can I use? And they said, we don't know, just can't be 8 foot. So literally, Dee Thomas just said, 8 foot. And they said, okay. Walked out to his truck, grabbed a hacksaw, cut his saltwater blank off to 8 feet. And what do you think happened the next day?
He won the next day.
He won the next day too. And that right there, but what it did is it presented a different problem for Dee, because now he's using a 8-foot saltwater blank with no reel, but it just cut his distance. So then Dee, being the competitor that he is, took tape and taped a level wind reel and taped some guides on his blank. And then that's how he started the flipping technique. Because what he was trying to do is present the bait the same way, and back then we only used a black tied hair jig, but he was trying to present the bait the same way, but now he had to come up, so he came up with the actual flipping technique.
That is neat.
And 8 foot has just stayed forever. Now, MLF, there is no rod restrictions. And the 2 events that I won on the Mississippi River back-to-back years, FLW at the time, the second event, the water was real high, and the first event I won there, the water was real high, I won it with a 10-footer, and nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. And those fish, at the beginning of the event, were up in the top canopies of the wheel. You'd pitch a jig in it and sink about 4 foot. On the final day, I couldn't get bit. I was just pitching the jig in, and reeling it, pitching the jig in, reeling it. So I ended up, at 11 o'clock, I had 1 4-pounder, and then it dawned on me those fish are sitting at the bottom. I picked up my 10-footer, pitch it out and let it go all the way to the bottom. And the bottom was 14, 15 foot. You talking about a hook set with a 10-footer? Amazing.
Wow.
And nobody noticed that I won it with a 10-foot rod. And Basil Bacon was my camera guy.
Really?
Yeah. And I won that with a
that?
10-footer.
How cool
So
is that?
yeah, you know, Major League Fishing, we have no rod
I
length
didn't know that
restrictions.
either. I just assumed it was 8 foot. I mean, I've read the rules a bunch of times, but
Yeah, we don't.
Do you have a
that.
10-footer in your boat?
I have a 10-footer at the house.
In the house. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So what else? I mean, there's so many ways I can take this. Tell me something that you think would be super cool to talk about.
Well, I think, you know, one of the really cool things is how you and me, you know, different eras, so to speak, have evolved with the sport. You know, when I got started with the sport, there was no guarantee that you were going to be able to fish out of your boat.
I bet you got
Dude,
some
I broke so much
stories.
junk. I mean, you know, yeah, the cables would break on the trolling motors. Batteries always went dead
Yeah.
because we just used car batteries at the time. Or you dump a lower unit, or your power trim would go out. The anglers today, kind of in the era that you started, the equipment was good, way better than what I started.
Right.
But now that you've been involved in the sport, you've been evolving too, and I've watched you evolve as an angler. The way you used to fish to the way you've been fishing and the way you are fishing. A lot of that has to do with your enthusiasm, with the new technology, but most important, what it has to do with your desire to learn. I mean, there's not too many anglers that I know of that put in the homework that you do, the study, the...
You're no different. I mean, that's
Well,
what, I mean,
we all have a work ethic, and it's that work ethic that keeps you at the top and it keeps you competitive. And there's no telling where this sport's going to evolve to. You know, and of course, you know, you've been a major part at the very beginning when we first started talking about Major League Fishing and this crazy format we had in our head. Look how far we've come in just a short period of time. We broke all of our records last week at stage 1. I mean, we live streamed over 27
Isn't that amazing?
million minutes.
So like this pops in my head thinking about all this stuff that you're saying. So like, you know, like in my era, you know, I guess we had side imaging was one of the first things. We've had an Alabama rig. We've got this front facing sonar. You know, there's a color. I mean, since you've started, since you were 15, what's been some of the biggest game changers? And then what's the biggest game changer? Like, or what is something that maybe you thought was going to be a big game changer is not even here anymore, like the color selector. I mean, I think about it, it's really not even here anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not even a factor. I mean, people haven't even been exposed to that. You had the oxygen meter, you had, you know, the color selector. Dr. Lauren Hill is the one that came up with the color selector. But what that did out of anything, whether it worked or not, is it gave the angler confidence, but it also gave the angler a piece of equipment that they could study and learn. It kept them involved in the sport. So I've evolved. So I mean, from the very beginning, I mean, one of the biggest game changers, literally, was Mercury put the trim switch on the cowling of the engine. Literally, that was like game changer. That was like major. Because in the beginning, there was no trim switch on the engine. So when you fish by yourself all the time, how did you, I mean, it was amazing because you had to trim up here on the handle, but if you were going to put your engine toter back there. So I developed a little routine that, you know, I got by with that. We finally got Mercury to evolve. They came up with a switch. We always had to mix oil with the gas. That was a mess. Mercury came up with the oil reservoir. You know, so you just watch how everything has evolved. And then probably in the very beginning, or not in the very beginning, but as everything evolved, the power pole.
Yeah.
I mean, I roomed with Shaw Grigsby for 2 years. He had one power pole on his boat, and he kept saying, man, you need to run a power pole. And I thought, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's for saltwater fishing.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
And I decided, yeah, I'll put one on there. And when I did, it was like, holy cow, game changer. Because now I don't have to blow my boat out with the trolling motor, blow my fishing water out, and I can maneuver, and then two.
Too powerful.
Because now the boat won't pivot.
Right.
We're one, you know, so we've evolved to one, now we're at two. And look at what's happened in recent years. literally. I've never been one to carry a battery charger inside of my boat. I've always carried my portables.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I still.
Yeah, I've seen that, yep.
Last year I went to the new Power Pole
Isn't that
Charge.
awesome? That thing's unbelievable. Yeah.
I,
So what about foot control trolling motors? Was that a game changer for you?
I
I grew up pretty much like the hand controls were still, but like,
Yeah, well, you see, back in the early years, I always ran foot control because I wanted to keep my hands free. And I studied the video of guys like Ken Cook. He ran a hand control, and they used that big foot.
Yep.
So they were always standing with their foot like this.
Yeah.
But their boat was always in motion. You know, and to pivot, they either had to hit the
Imagine
reverse
the
switch,
balance those guys
reverse
had.
around. Hey, I got sucked into it. Mercury, Mercury had a thruster. I put one on my boat, and I would stand on the trolling motor, and it had a rotate handle, and I would rotate it with my foot. Never take my foot off the trolling, and that's how I fished. Rick Klein fished that way. Rick Klein kind of, man, that's cool. I did that for a year, but anyhow. But what's evolved on the trolling motors now? Look at our new Lowrance Ghost trolling motors. There's a couple things that are just like out of this world. The early trolling motors were cabled. They always break, come off the rollers, you know.
I always carried spare rollers with me. Remember we had those brass rollers made to replace the plastic ones?
Yeah, I mean, there was always something. You know, you get it in a kink or something like that. The new Lowrance trolling motor, of course, you're Lowrance, I'm Lowrance. But what I'm proud of is very rarely is a new piece of equipment, like our trolling motors,
That
bulletproof for the first time. I mean, like right out of the box.
I've said it a bunch.
I've been so impressed. They've eliminated the cable. There's no brushes, so your electronics just stay clean and crisp, you know, the whole time.
Batteries last forever.
Batteries last forever. And I don't even have to lower it down the water, just pop it out of the bracket and let it go, and it's got a self-assist. It's phenomenal. So it's improvements like that you and I mean, you know, that's part of it evolving to where we are today. It's exciting to be a part of it. And of course now, you know, we've got forward imaging. And I've seen this, of course I've been Lowrance forever. I never had access to it. In fact, being around Cliff Pace and Cliff with Garmin, forward imaging. And I'll never forget it, we're at Table Rock 3 years ago for our tour event. And he's showing me video that he's taken with his phone off of his Garmin. Like, dude, man, this is cool, man. Look at my bug go down like, go down. I said, look, don't. I didn't want to look at it anymore.
I don't want it in my head. I know.
I did. I said, turn it off. You know, I'm not going to look. Oh, man, I got a whole bunch more of them. No.
I was the same way because I couldn't have it.
I know it, but I knew that Lowrance was, you know, in the workings. But Lowrance did what you and I both appreciate. Dude, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Our units are so clean and crisp and clear. I mean, you know, they've done such a good job. So it's fun to live in this era. I have no idea where it's going to go, but one thing kind of leads to another. If you take a look at like our forward imaging now, okay? And this has been my thought process. You're Berkeley, I'm Berkeley. And we're very fortunate to have the crew that we have up there. I mean, I know you got a new line of spinner baits that are, I mean, like primo stuff. I just got to fish them down there. Well, I was talking to you. I caught one while we were talking on the phone. I've got the line of jigs, but what I keep telling our guys at Berkeley is think about forward imaging, okay? The anglers that are really getting good at forward imaging are fishing jerkbaits, okay? The jerkbait, because you can cast it, depth control, leave it out there, look at the fish, play with it, okay? But what I keep telling our team at Berkeley is think outside the box, because I think forward imaging, moving forward, is gonna create a whole new lure category.
It is. I'm really excited about the jigs you got built, you know, because when you can put that power bait scent into that skirt, I just wish I could get some. Gary.
What's the same thing with the spinner
I still can't get any. I got like 6 before I
Dude,
left the
I
house.
had 2 of your spinner baits, and they're both 3/4 ounce, and I had to rob them from Dan down there in Florida.
I'm gonna come rob your boat for some of them jigs because I can.
Well, I got a box right here. I've got a few of them in there.
Oh, there we go. That's what I need right there.
But yeah, we're starting to get all that stuff in it. Yeah, these things are built good.
Really good jigs. Really good jigs. Man, there's just a, you know, when you've had a career like you've had, starting in the 70s and going all the way to right now, two-time Hall of Famer. You just got inducted into the Texas Hall of Fame. That is super, super cool. Inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame back in 18. That's the only Hall of Fame I've ever been to. I actually went to that one, and that was a really neat deal to go to. But I guess something that I want to talk about just real quick. This video is getting kind of long, but the time that I got to spend with Gary was super eye-opening on teaching me how to long-range shoot. Like, it was the first time I ever even heard about it, so I want to thank you for that. But Gary is the man. Like, if there's ever a coyote out there at 1,000 yards,
no.
He can shoot it. It's really, really cool.
Well, I can shoot at it. Not always guaranteed to.
And that was the same time I got to shoot this gun. It had as a pistol, and I mean it
the
had
largest handgun in the world.
Largest handgun in the world. What was that thing? A 500?
It was a Smith & Wesson 500.
And then I was shooting and I was having so much fun. He said, "You do realize them bullets are about $2.50 a piece," and that was like 15 years ago. I'd hate to imagine what does a box of them bullets cost now?
I don't know. I load.
Okay.
And I've got a lot of rounds for it, so we need to go shoot it again.
I mean, it was monstrous shells, but man, that was really, really cool.
And our guns are a little bit better now too.
Yeah.
We're a little bit better dialed in.
There's just gonna be like a whole year-long series of asking
Well,
Gary Klein's.
let me just tell you a story that it's just a really cool story. It's a story of a true professional that you and I both know very well. And just to kind of give your listeners an idea of true professionalism and how to catch fish. And especially if you're a team or you're fishing as a co-angler, to really focus on what I'm about to say. I drew Rick Klein on Toledo Bend. And this was in an August event. We were
What
fishing.
year was it? Do you remember? Like,
Yeah, I want to say it was 80.
okay.
Either 79 or 80. It was called Four Dealers for Bass. So I was fishing BASS, and then I was fishing Four Dealers for Bass. It was a $500 entry fee. In first place was your choice of a Ford vehicle. Second place was a fully rigged Skeeter bass boat. Last tournament of the year, Harold Allen and I were tied for points, okay? And we're going to Toledo Bend. Well, I know
That's where he lives. Everybody that doesn't know Harold Allen, like he is the man on. He's caught more bass on Toledo Bend than I've ever caught in my life.
Yeah, and back in the day, in August, that was like his strong deal. So coming into that event, tied with Harold for points. You and I both know that strange things happen.
Yeah.
His boat could break down, or somebody else was on a spot. You know how it could kind of go south. So I found some fish all the way up Patroon Creek, all the way in the back. I really wasn't in the lake. I was probably 4 miles out of the lake.
Oh, wow.
But it was in the summertime. The water temperature was like in the 90s. But the further I went up the creek, the canopies of the trees, it was like 85 degrees, and there was shad everywhere. It's like the fish had migrated, and they probably had never really been fished for.
Right.
So anyhow, I draw Rick Klein the second day of the event. Now the first day, Harold Allen weighs like 7 for 43. I weighed 20.
7 for 43.
Oh yeah. And he caught him off of one tree in back-to-back casts, and I think he went and drank coffee.
Wow.
I mean, he had it one hands down.
And you had what?
I had like 20.
20.
So I draw Rick Klein going into the second day of the event. Ricky had a bad first day. Rick Klein, who I had never really spent a lot of time with, I'd met him, never been in a boat with him. Rick just said, I'll meet you in the morning. Just tell me where you want me to meet. And I said, just right here.
And this is back in the draw days. So
this is in the draw days. So we're drawing boat to boat.
Yeah. I just want to a lot of our listeners don't realize that. I mean,
that's why I was trying to set it up as a true professional. Rick Klein shows up on my boat the next morning with literally a brown paper lunch bag and 3 rods. That's it.
Didn't even ask you what you're going to go do?
Nope.
Okay.
So I told him that morning where I was fishing. And he said, Gary, I've got a shortcut that'll save us about 15 minutes if you want to use it. And I said, well, Ricky, I'm not now, but maybe on our way out, I will.
Yeah.
He said, well, on our way out, if you've got a few minutes, I got a spot we can stop and maybe catch a big one off of.
Right.
So anyhow, we go up that bayou. Now I'm fishing a bayou that literally I can cast to both sides of it, a narrow deal. Now I'm fishing a slow rolling spinnerbait around logs and shade. Rick Klein goes to the back of my boat, made me trim the engine down so he could sit on my cowling. turned his back to me and was throwing away from the boat on water I had already fished. Never one time did Ricky throw in front of me, and never one time did Ricky throw to the other side. Because he knew I was going to fish up and back down.
That's so awesome.
And folks, he caught literally 10 to my 1 using a totally different technique. And I'm like, holy cow. Because I'm getting, you know, say if I got 15 bites that day, he got 35.
Wow.
He just kept catching. I was so impressed. But what that taught me as an angler is one of the fallacies you see when two guys fish together is they start out, especially on a co-ang, they start out in the morning of the day and they both have different things tied on. At the end of the day, they have the same thing tied on because somebody caught something and now they're putting all the confidence in the bait. And you know as well as I do, when you tie a lure on and catch a fish, you can name 6 other baits you could have caught that same fish on.
Right.
So, but anyhow, that was a true professional, and that really opened up my eyes to the guys. But over my career, you know, in the early years and fishing bass for so many years, my best draws have been Roland Martin, Shaw Grigsby, Guido Hibden, Rick Klein. I mean, the best anglers, George Cochran. And anytime I drew those anglers, we had stellar days on the water because it's just two guys going fishing.
Yeah.
And we just went out and had a good time and caught what we needed to catch.
That is super cool. One thing that we always try to talk about on this channel, like for a young angler or woman, boy, you know, there's all of them now. What advice would you have to them, knowing everything you know, to make it to where you're at right now?
How much time you
Yeah.
got? I'll make this quick. First of all, you have to have a passion for fishing. If you're getting involved in this sport for other reasons, go to another sport. You know, don't get involved in this sport for all the glamour and the glory because this sport will test you like nothing else you've ever done in your life. There's a tremendous highs and there's a lot of lows. Longevity is the key in this sport. You and I both see anglers come in for 1 or 2 years and then they leave. The successful anglers all have a passion for fishing. But most important, when you're a young angler, when you're starting out, you have everything to learn about yourself, but you have to study. There's 2 things going on. Over here, you're learning rods, reels, lines, lures, knots, all of the basic fundamentals, and you're learning about yourself. See, that's one of the cool things about this sport, Edwin. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It should be your way.
Yeah.
And if your way works, why change?
Yeah.
But when it doesn't work, then study it, understand it, make the change. The other thing going over here, which I think is probably the least amount studied area by most anglers, even on our tour, is the fish. Develop an understanding of the bass, the habitat that they live in, the species of fish, time of year, type of lake, current conditions, and then you can take all of your knowledge with your tools and apply that.
It's a great point. It's a great point. You got to study. Anybody can cast a lure. Anybody can tie a knot when you get to this level. But it's those people that understand why is that fish doing what he's doing today versus tomorrow or yesterday.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand why so-and-so is always catching fish on that lure. You and I both know there's a big difference between tying a lure on and throwing it out and reeling it in versus tying that same lure on and fishing it.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Man, thank you.
Oh, dude,
it's
anytime.
an honor to get to sit here beside you.
Oh, come on.
No, it truly is. I can't thank you enough. And,
no, I appreciate it. I appreciate you asking me. And
appreciate all you've done for the sport.
Well,
more than anything, Gary, the work, the dedication. I know how much your heart and your soul and your family have put into Major League Fishing and getting that started and all the conservation behind it. That's one thing I just want to mention, guys, is that's where the root of a lot of this came from, was just conserving our sport, you know, the catch, weigh, and release, and getting you know, this DNA testing now that we got going on, all those different things. It's all about preserving our sport, and you're the reason why, a big part of it. And I want to thank you for all you've poured into it for all of us and for all the generations to come.
Well, and I really appreciate that. And in closing, let me just say this, you know, it takes time to build, and you've been part of the process from the beginning. We've just created the Major League Fishing Fish Management Division. And one of our focuses is to really build our fisheries with a good understanding, because here's the thing. I've had the opportunity to travel this country and fish a lot of really good bodies of water. and I've experienced some awesome days on the water. The challenge for us is for the young anglers and for the new anglers, I want to see them have those same experiences. We're not building more reservoirs. We have more anglers now that are very educated on catching fish. So the challenge that we have is being able to preserve, educate through research, and let's get our fisheries and maintain them for the future of all of our new anglers.
Pretty cool. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Awesome individual. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
So, man, Gary, I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity and just a little bit insight to you guys. But like for everybody, like how can they follow you? Like how can they learn more about you? Obviously, I guess your website.
Yeah, you can go to Gary Angler Pro or Gary Klein Pro Angler.
Okay.
Personal website. You can follow us on the Major League Fishing Fisheries Management Division on that website with all of our articles and really understand the projects that we're working on because we're going to open up some of this stuff to the public.
Oh, cool.
We want to get everybody involved because that way we can collect more data. And the more data that we have, the better we can help the state agencies make decisions.
Real quick, I know we've closed this now twice, but explain to them what you're talking about because I don't think a lot of people understand like when we're swabbing that tongue of that bass. Like, explain that to everybody watching.
Well, simply, as an angler, I have a lot of questions. And some of the questions that we're trying to address, and there's many of them, but just the basic fundamental of our DNA Lunker initiative. If you notice, if you're watching Major League Fishing Live, all 7-pounders or greater, we're swabbing the tongue. We're taking that sample and sending it off to Auburn University and we're getting a DNA analysis of that fish. And basically, folks, what we're getting back at this time is the genetic makeup of Florida and largemouth. Because here's some of the questions. For some reason, some lakes, they just live in and they grow and they get really, really good, big. We want to know what genetic percentage is right for that body of water. The other thing is northerns in Florida. I mean, how far south does the northern genetic go and how far north does the Florida genetic go? So once we start collecting all the data, then we can start tracking it out on the map. What that's going to lead us to, and maybe the audience doesn't really understand, or maybe they do, in November of 2019, we acquired FLW. Now we've changed the FLW name to Major League Fishing by Big Five, but when we brought that group in, now not only do we have a catch, weigh, release, which is, but we also have a circuit of live well fish.
Best five.
And we know that the best that we can do, there's always going to be a certain percentage of loss. Well, the Fisheries Management Division at Major League Fishing, what we really want to focus on is that when we do go to an event, something happens, and we lose a percentage of those fish at a weigh-in, we're going to come back and restock 10 times what we lost in that water body.
Oh, wow.
But what we want to do is just not stock fish to be stocking them. We want to bring the right genetic fish back to that water body that have the highest survival rate and are going to grow the biggest. So that's part of the research.
That is super cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really cool. Guys, man, thank you, Gary, for the time. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.